Have you heard of this thing called the Mig Switch?
I have heard. I do not have one. I don't know anyone that has one, but I've seen tons of YouTube videos.
You are in luck. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have one, but man, I thought about buying one when it got announced, but I didn't, and missed opportunity, I guess, because I think them some bitches are gone.
I think that it is very likely that the Mig Switch. I mean, Nintendo's doing everything they can do to, like, kind of shut down anything in relation to these Mig Switch things. Like they're suing sellers. Mm-hmm. We'll go over all this in just a second, but I mean, they really are trying to shut the Mig Switch down, along with any sort of like modification or any ways that you can play illegal copies of Nintendo Switch games. They don't want you doing it. No, they really don't want you doing it.
They want your money. Mm-hmm. What would you have done if I pulled a Mig Switch out of my pocket right there?
I would have been amazed because you haven't mentioned it. Yeah. So I would have been very, very, like...
That would have been a cool moment.
I would have been like, oh no, they're coming for us next, because Nintendo is not messing around with this stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't have one, but Nintendo is not messing around. So they've got a couple lawsuits going right now. They're suing... and I didn't name these guys by name, but they're suing the operator of a store called Modded Hardware because apparently this dude was distributing MIG switches, but that's not as much the problem. He's also been offering, allegedly, a mail-in service where you can send him your switch, he'll mod it, send it back, and you might even find some bonus installed games on it, upon receipt of package, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, so according to the lawsuit, dude's not only modding switches, he's giving you free pirated games on there. Basically, he's like spitting in the face of Nintendo. This dude's done, if this is true.
I don't think he's spitting in the face of Nintendo quite as hard as the other person being sued, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so there's another. Tell me about the other.
They're also suing one of, if not kind of the top mod of the Reddit community, r/Switch Pirates. And so this dude was, he's a mod in this community. So he's probably on paper, digital paper, helping people, point them in the right direction of how to mod the Switch, where to go to get these pirated games, how to install them, how to play them. And apparently there's some quotes that they found of him saying things like, I'm a pirate. I ain't giving Nintendo any money. I ain't paying $50 for a game. Like, you're screwed, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
Yeah, he's like basically facilitating illegal activities, essentially. And he's like trying to encourage and tell people how to do it. Nintendo is not very fond of that.
You're done, friend.
Yeah, and it seems to me that Nintendo has lately, I mean, they've always been pretty hard on this, but lately it seems like they are really cracking down on it.
It does.
It seems like they're trying to tie up some loose ends before the Switch 2 comes out. And it
what?
Well, the successor to the Nintendo Switch.
Thank you.
Yes. And that makes me think that very likely, if not certainty now, the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. And they don't want you to have things like, they don't want you to have access to the MIG Switch. Because if the MIG Switch works on the Switch, odds are it's going to work on the successor to the Switch, which would be very bad for them.
Yes. I know a guy who has a Game Boy Advance ROM cart.
Okay.
Very similar to this. And I heard that he tested it on a DS Lite.
And it works.
So this would be the same kind of situation.
Yeah.
But Nintendo cares this time.
Yeah, because the Switch is still in production.
Yes.
I mean, people are asking like, okay, DS, flash carts are out there. They're not doing anything about those. Why do they not care? Well, the DS isn't in production. The Switch is here and now. And in my mind, there is a clear difference between, at least in terms of importance to something like Nintendo, we're talking about people pirating games that they are actively producing and trying to sell in this moment versus ones that they have, they're no longer in production. The consoles, they don't, they've kind of moved past those. The order of importance is very night and day to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about software for a console that's not only still being made and sold, but will most likely, or at least probably, I'm saying definitely, end up being the best selling console of all time. So, I mean, if there was ever a cash cow to protect, it's probably Switch crap.
It's probably Switch, exactly. And if we look at something like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, we know that they were also backwards compatible, like 1-to-1. And PlayStation 4 games are still on the shelf now in 2024. You can go into a Walmart. There's still PS4 games. There's still Xbox One games being sold. So I would expect us to see just regular Nintendo Switch cartridges easily being for sale, even in 2030. We may still be seeing Nintendo Switch cartridges for sale in stores, if that's the case.
2030?
Yeah, if we're not getting the Switch successor of the Switch until 2025. 5 years after that, I could totally, if we're still backwards compatible, I could see us still getting Switch cartridges in 2030.
Yeah.
So they are not done with this. They do not want you pirating these.
Yeah.
Because they are not finished with it.
So we've talked a lot about piracy, but that was not the mission of the Mig Switch, okay? The Mig Switch was meant to play legally obtained backup ROMs of your games that you already bought.
Yeah, it was a big thing when they first came out with the Mig Switch. There was kind of the thing that separated. They were kind of like, this isn't just a flash card. This is a thing where it comes with nothing, and to put things on it, you have to use a device that you put in your games and you dump the ROMs on it.
Did it come with that device?
Well, it's sold separately. You can buy them together or separately, but you have to use it to put ROMs on the Mig Switch, from what I understand. Obviously, I don't have one.
Yeah.
But
well, you're in. No, how many times can I use that?
I don't know.
So we asked the Gaming Geek Faithful. We said, why do you think most people buy Switch flash carts? Randy, this is your opportunity.
Yeah, 13% of people said that they think it's because they want to play backups of legally obtained games. But most people say people buy these to play pirated games. 87% of people think it's all about piracy.
That was pitiful.
Oh, I forgot I was supposed to have a bunch of...
pitiful.
I'm sorry, yo. I let you
My
down.
God.
I let you down. I was supposed to do that with just tons of personality. I had no
little attitude.
I had no personality.
Little sass. You know, get all... just cook some breads and soups.
Get all fat and sassy.
All right. Well, I was shocked by these results.
Were you now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only 13% of you think people are using this for the actual reason that it was made. You think 87% of people that bought this are trying to play pirated games? Shame on you.
Look, I really do think that obviously the appeal, is there much of an appeal of just getting all your games backed up onto another cart? Some, I guess.
To some people, I could see the convenience in that. Like, because I'll tell you what that does.
Okay.
Because the convenience of the all-digital future is that you have all your games. You ain't got to worry about the cartridges. They're there, right?
Sure.
As long as they're downloaded and installed, you've got them. The bad part about that is that you now don't have the physical thing that we love to collect. And maybe one day you're not going to be able to play these games once they get pulled, right? The Mig Switch kind of bridges that gap. You know, you can still buy your physical games, but you get the benefits of the all-digital future. That is cool.
That is
honest to God, that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And if I had one, I would probably be trying to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just last night, you borrowed a game from me, and I showed you my Switch collection, and I've got tons of cartridges. I mean, it's just a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And it would be very convenient if I had all those on one cartridge.
It would be very cool.
And they've made some changes to it to where the Mig Switch now, instead of having to do the insert over and over and over, because you know that was the original thing.
What'd you have to do? You had to.
So it had no way of, it had like no UI or anything.
Yeah.
So like you put the game in and it would just show you one game. And then to change the game, you had to take it out and put it back in and it would swap to the next game on the list. So if you had 50 games, you'd have to
did not realize that.
Put it in and out of your Switch 50 times.
You just had to sit there and like watch it.
Yes, until it comes to the and then if you missed it, you have to go back around.
Oh.
So now the new versions have a button on the thing, and you just press the button, and it does the same thing, but you just don't have the.
It's like a button on the cartridge.
On the cartridge, and you just press the button until you get the right one, so it doesn't wear out your You don't have to put it in and out over and over.
There are some like Game Boy flash carts that have functionality where you like tap them in the right spot or squeeze them in the right spot, and it'll take you to like the UI. So
yeah,
that's not too far removed from what we've seen before, but. Man, that first way, I had not heard that, and that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, they've seemed to fix that, but it may not matter because Nintendo is suing all the people who are selling these things, or at least it seems so. They're suing the big ones, the high profile ones, and I'm sure people are getting scared You know,
I'm
like
terrified.
if you're selling MIG switches, or if you're selling ways for people to, accommodate people to play pirated Nintendo Switch games, I'd be, you know, pooping my britches right now.
You're done.
You're done.
You're done. So we got a comment here from Danny C89 Hundo, who said, honestly, was thinking about getting one to back up all my games on one cart. It does get annoying having to swap them out. And to that I say, I agree with you, and good luck getting one.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, it would be cool and it would be convenient, but I don't know if the convenience is enough for me to spend, I don't know, I think a MIG switch is around like $60-$70. And then also the thing, you got to have the ROM dumper, which is also another added expense. It's going to be probably close to buying 2 games
ROM dumper.
where you can put your...
I didn't even know her.
Oh, good one. I don't know if it's worth it to me. I like...
Oh, it's not worth the. It's just, it would be a cool little convenient thing. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't really want to pay $70 for that especially if I'm already going to have to sockle the damn thing.
Right. Yeah, you might as well just take it out and put the cartridge
Yeah.
that you own in, right?
And there has always been something nostalgic about, putting a cartridge in and playing that game. Like
100%.
We've always said that.
Yeah, love that. It's just something about it. So next we have a comment from Crazy Fetch, who said, still need to get one. Don't use my Switch enough to keep buying games for it, and I'm free to download all these games I want anyway. Since it's not illegal for me to download movies or games, only to supply them is illegal. Ooh. I think that the Nintendo Terms of Service Agreement may disagree with you, my friend.
Crazy Fetch, all I'm saying is I hope that you live in another country where you are protected in some way, because if you're in the contiguous 48, I'm not sure about the frontier of Alaska or Hawaii, but if you're in the contiguous 48, you wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Doug Bowser is going to beat your freaking door down and whoop your ass.
There might be some, like, if you own the game, like if you own a copy of it, you might be able to argue that morally, maybe not legally, but at least morally,
Yeah.
you have no problems getting a ROM of it and playing it via an emulator or something, because you happen to own it. What are you typing?
Oh, I just looked it up. Doug Bowser doesn't give a crap about your morals.
Oh yeah. No, he doesn't. But I could see, there's an argument to be made that morally, if you own a game,
Sure.
a copy of it, like I was thinking the other day, like, say you buy a PS2 game, and those things are really, if you put one scratch on them things, they're not going to play anymore.
No.
You bought it, but now you can't play your disc. Like, I think, like, one could argue that morally you could download a ROM and play it via emulation because you have bought it.
Sure, one could argue that, and one could lose. Now I don't know if Sony would destroy you like Nintendo would, but probably.
It doesn't seem like they care as much. For some reason, Nintendo is very, very protective of their IP. Oh, more than anyone. I think it's because they, one, are very popular games, probably the most popular retro games, for sure.
100%.
But also, I think Nintendo has big plans for their IP in terms of Nintendo Switch Online. I think that when we get the next console, I think it's only going to expand. And we might get to a position in the future where Nintendo offers, next to everything they've ever made, they have a way that you can legally obtain and purchase and play those games right now. And at that point, the moral argument for something like ROMs and downloading, and playing through emulation through, ROMs that you obtain from somewhere else, even the moral argument starts to be on pretty thin ice at that point.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you, since I've gotten back to the Switch, I looked through the Nintendo Switch Online apps again because it's been a while.
It's bonkers.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's getting pretty damn good.
Yeah, it really is.
It is getting pretty damn good because it's like, I have a crazy physical collection of all these old retro games, and I have ripped ROMs off of all of them, and I have a lot of ROMs.
Right.
And I'm always like trying to look at like what would be the best like ROM list, to like have on this emulator, like because you don't want to get bogged down by having like the whole library.
Yeah, because that's just too much.
That's too much. And choice paralysis,
Yes.
is a real thing.
Totally.
And I was looking through the Nintendo Switch Online apps, and they They have got a really damn good list, like
They do.
a very well curated list.
Very
of-
few omissions.
Very few. Now, I'll tell you a glaring omission that needs to be on the SNES app would be a little game called Chrono Trigger. But
That's not Nintendo though, so that's they're not.
Oh, I know.
If I'm sure that if Nintendo could choose, Chrono Trigger would be there.
well, I'm just hoping that maybe Square is holding back because they're working on the remake or
I think-
HD. Like I don't know.
Chrono Trigger is a game that has historically been very unavailable. Like it just isn't hardly available at all, even either through these collections. Like they just don't re-release it.
They don't. Well, I mean, it was
They
on
have
SNES. and
mobile.
then there's a mobile version. You can download it right now.
It was a GBA that got Chrono Trigger. Or was it DS?
Is DS. And the mobile versions, I think, are more or less the DS versions with a
Mm-hmm.
few things that changed. And they added like these anime style cutscenes to the DS version, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the version to play. There's also an extra dungeon, but that's not the version I played. I played the SNES version, but that would be perfectly fine to have the SNES version on there and have no cutscenes. Like,
I think Square does have plans for Chrono Trigger. I really do.
I really hope so.
Even if it's just HD 2D, which I think that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
But I could see them, like what if they go like the full like Final Fantasy remake, like they go really do it,
I don't want that.
You don't want that?
I don't want that. Chrono Trigger is not like the longest game in the world. Mm-hmm. And to turn it into like...
I'm not saying 3-parter. I'm just saying like what if they modernize it, like really take it and like... I could see that being really high profile for them if they made a modern version of Chrono Trigger. Like,
Oh, it would be. That would be huge. And I would pre-order the crap out of it. But
Yeah.
I don't want it. I don't want that. HD 2D I think sounds great. Or even just like pixel remaster style, like they did the Final Fantasy games. I think that would be fantastic. But I'll buy anything that Rare puts out that says Chrono Trigger if it's a game.
Rare, you mean Square?
Sorry, yeah, Square.
They rhyme, don't they?
They do. And I'm bad with names.
You're bad with names, especially if they rhyme. Especially if they rhyme.
I don't know why I've gotten that way. I wasn't always like this.
Something happened to you. Your brain broke, man.
Dude.
All right, going back to our Mig Switch or just Nintendo Switch carts and why people buy them. But specifically about the Mig Switch, we have a comment here from Princess Pona. I'm not saying it the other way because that's how it is.
You really think it's dirty?
I do think it's dirty. And comment says, here's the crazy part. If you want to pirate games on there, you need 2 other devices and you have to have a modded Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so I did some research on this, and it does appear that there are some protections, involved that I didn't know about.
You have to have at least one other device, which is the device you need to take your ROMs off of your existing Switch cartridges and then put them on the Mig Switch. That's for sure.
But Princess is talking about pirated games. If you're pirating games, you're not ripping them.
You're right. If you want to pirate games, you have to have 2 other devices. Yeah, there are workarounds, but it is probably a little intense.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you're just running such a risk at that point. Like you accidentally let your Switch hit the internet, and all of a sudden you're banned.
Yeah, that's happening.
It's
That's
happening.
where Nintendo is looking at, because when you take these ROMs off of cartridges, they have like a unique identifier to them. That draws them back to a specific cartridge. And when you have more than one person go online and try to play with these, these ROMs, essentially, Nintendo knows that particular version, that particular game has been pirated.
Yeah.
At least by one of the people who it's dumped. Well, someone dumped it too.
And I wonder what happens in that case. Like the person who used it first, they shouldn't be banned.
Unless they're intentionally dumping making it available online.
But how do you know they didn't just get robbed?
Yeah, they got robbed. Someone robbed their Switch games and made all their ROMs available online.
Prove I didn't.
Very likely.
Prove I didn't get robbed.
Well, I think they're still going to take you to court and you can prove it in court. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Easy.
Easy.
I'm going to need you to stick around after the podcast. We're going to have to stage a robbery.
Stage a robbery. You just made... oh, no, Daniel. Nintendo listens to this podcast. I know Reggie listens to this podcast.
Reggie, I hope you do because I freaking love you. But I don't have a Mig Switch, so come at me.
He's just making a joke, okay,
Yeah.
Reg? All right. So, interesting. Any final thoughts about Switch carts? I'll tell you, my takeaway is that I would not get near one of these with a 10-foot pole because, like, one.
Are you sure about that? Because
one, it's Nintendo. Two, like, the Switch is still in production. Switch cartridges aren't going anywhere. It's not like this is a really old game where you just can't buy them anymore.
Right.
Like, to me, this is just. I'd stay away from it if I were you guys. If you haven't already.
Yeah, it seems very cool and too risky.
Yeah.
It seems convenient and interesting, and I love hearing about stuff like this because emulation is just interesting to me.
For preservation's sake, especially. I mean, but we're not at the point of where this is, like, necessary yet.
No, if you can still go to Walmart and buy your Switch games, the preservation argument doesn't even hold any wind or hold a candle to the
in fact,
10,000 candles in the wind.
The things that really need to be preserved are digital games that you can only get on the eShop and that maybe one day would go away, if the eShop gets shut down. That's the stuff that really, even now, we need to start thinking about preservation.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the Mig Switch really plays in any part of a role in that besides storage of the games.
Could you preserve those games by just getting a big ass SD card and installing all your games to it and just having that?
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, is there anything that you can think of that one day Nintendo like flips a switch and all of a sudden you can't play them?
Unless they have some sort of like they have to call to the server to be able to be played and stuff. But I don't think I think the majority of Switch games don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're online,
Because it's meant to be portable. So.
Yeah, and you can play the Switch in offline mode, without that. So I don't know. I don't think so. I think, and that's when we saw, like when the 3DS and Wii U was being shut down. There were efforts made to do that very same thing with the 3DS. Download every single game that was on the eShop to, just like micro SD cards.
Yeah.
So that they're at least preserved in some way.
Yeah. I think I heard Bob Wolf talking about this like years and years ago because he did go all digital with the Switch.
Oh, okay.
And I think him and somebody, it might have been Wood, I don't know, we're talking about like, aren't you worried one day you're not going to be able to play your games? And he was like, dude, I just got a big ass SD card. I'm never deleting anything off of it.
Right, yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess if the SD card gets corrupted, that's your only thing. But I mean, that can be said about any storage medium.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. And that could very well happen.
It could happen. Everything goes bad eventually. Like SD cards don't last forever.
Except for Gaming Gig. Gaming Gig never goes bad.